You have as many identities as he does, like the rhinestone cowboy or the mysterious rhinestone cowboy. It's kind of hard to figure out where you're at, but not when you write music like he does. Here's my friend David Allan Coe singing, "Take this job and shove it."
Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. A woman done left and took all the reasons that I was working for. Better not try to stand in the way when I'm walking out the door. Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. Yeah, I've been working in this factory pretty close to 15 years. Seen some of my best friends women standing in a pool of tears. Seen a lot of kinfolks dying, had a lot of bills to pay. Ought to give the shirt right off in my back if I had the guts to say, take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. A woman done left and took all the reasons that I was working for. You better not try to stand in the way when I'm walking out the door. Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. Foreman is the regular SOB and the line boss, well, he's a fool. He got himself a brand new flat top haircut. Lord, he really thinks that's cool. One of these days I'm gonna blow my top and there's gonna be hell to pay. I can't wait to see their faces when I get the nerve to say, take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. A woman done left and took all the reasons that I was working for. You better not try to stand in the way when I'm walking out the door. You know what I mean? Take this job and shove it. I ain't working here no more. Take this job and shove it.
David, I don't know how many times I wanted to tell somebody like that, and I think sometimes that I did tell them about 5 times.
Well, you know, they said it was the working man's anthem, and it's just a shame that they all identified with Johnny Paycheck as being the working man's hero, because actually I wrote the song, you know, about the working man, and I should have been the working man's hero.
Well, we all know that.
Well, I appreciate
Sure,
it.
you worked 9 to 5.
A lot of times, in 12 till 6, and, you know, I've had a lot of jobs, that's for sure.
Don't go away, we'll be right back.
Bobby Bare and Friends Songwriter Showcase with Bobby's friends, David Allan Coe, Gary Gentry, and Steve Young.
Think I'll be that kind of fool for you, babe. I never knew no one like you.
Oh,
It's different from me, ain't it?
my.
Yeah.
David, see, I knew all along that you got music talent. You know,
Yeah.
I admire somebody. I say, I don't play a guitar.
Uh-huh.
You play a piano.
Well, you know, when I was in prison, I was in the prison band, and I studied music theory and harmony and all that, and I played about 15 different instruments. I was a drummer in a jazz band. I played guitar in a hillbilly band. I played saxophone in a rock and roll band. And I wrote a lot of songs on piano. So
Yeah, that's great. Because I really didn't know you played piano. I've known you for years, but I didn't know you played piano.
Yeah.
That's a gorgeous song, too.
Thank you. I wrote that for Willie Nelson, and he's going to record it, I guess. If he changes his mind.
Well, if he tells you he will, he will.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting evening. I went in and said, hey, I just wrote this song, and of
played it for him, and he took the lyrics and stuck them in his pocket, and I can't remember how the rest of it goes, because I just wrote it on the way over there. He's got the only tape copy. You know?
Call him up and say, hey, Willie, how's my song go?
Yeah, right. Well, I'm not going to mess with it now because him and Waylon did Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone on their new duet album that's coming out. I don't want to rock the boat, you know.
I love that song. I'd like to sing it.
Well, we'll do it later.
Let me ask you something. How much time did you spend in correctional institutions, which is just a nice way to say how much time you spend in pen?
Yeah. It was a little over 20 years, Bobby, counting reform schools.
In and out.
In and out. The longest I was ever on the street at one time was 60 days. You know, I'd get out and then I'd get in more trouble and go to another institution or whatever. And so I got a little over 20 years inside various institutions, mostly in the state of Ohio. I think I've been in every institution in the state of Ohio, you know.
Well, that's where I'm from, Ohio.
Oh, I know that, yeah. I used to have guys come in prison and tell me they used to play with you in little bars and stuff.
That's right.
I used to play guitar for Bobby Bare.
Probably true.
And, of course, they used to say that Bobby Bare wasn't your real name, that you had another name, and they said who they used to play for. I never did know if it was a true story or not.
Well, I had my first record was under the name of Bill Parsons.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
So it kind of worked back and forth like that.
They didn't know who the real you was then. They didn't know if you was
I didn't
Bill
either,
Parsons or Bobby Bare.
I kind of run around trying to find myself like everybody else. I just didn't get put in the pen. I didn't get caught.
Yeah, you know, you told me that the first time I met you when I came. You used to have a little office over there. I went over there with Billy Joe Schaefer, and he brought me over there to play some songs for you. And he was sitting behind that desk, and I was scared to death because, you know, you was a big star, and I was just a new boy in town and everything.
You didn't act scared?
Yeah, I was pretty scared, and you told me, and you said, you know, the only difference between me and you, man, he says, I never got caught, and that put me at ease, you know, and I was able to play my songs for you.
And they were good songs, too.
Well, thank you.
I mean, there wasn't just run-of-the-mill songs. So I guess there is rehabilitation is not a dirty word. It can happen.
Yeah, I think...
Well, you mellowed it out now.
I like the word remotivation better than I do rehabilitation. And a little later on, I think I brought copies of my books and everything, you know, to show you. I wrote books about remotivation for men in prison. And tell you a little bit about that.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll read them. Right now, I'm reading the life story of Lenny Bruce.
Yeah, he's very interesting.
He wrote songs, you know.
Yeah, he was a very interesting person.
He
I like anybody that is willing to take that one step out and do something that no one else has ever done before.
Well,
I know that's hard for you to believe about me, but...
No, a lot of people, you know, they work best when they're living right on the edge and just kind of teetering on the brink.
Yeah.
And how do you write best?
Well, my best time of writing is in the early mornings when it's really quiet. It's very quiet, and I just let my mind drift. And if I know that I'm somewhere where I'm not going to be bothered, I'll go out on my boat and sit in the middle of the ocean or something, you know, where I know no one's going to bother me and no one's distractions and everything. But I have written under different circumstances. I went to a studio one time and Johnny Cash was recording an album called Precious Memories, and I sat there and wrote 7 songs, and I wrote the liner notes to the album, and John walked up behind me and he says, what are you writing? I said, I was just writing some thoughts that I had about what you're doing here, and he said, let me read it, and it ended up being the liner notes on his album.
Well, you've hung out with Willie and Waylon, and as a matter of fact, you wrote a song and recorded it called Willie, Waylon and Me.
Yeah. You know...
Or Willie, Waylon and You.
Yeah, Willie, Waylon and Me. What happened was I used to ride with a motorcycle club called the Outlaws, and we have colors which says Outlaws on them. And Willie and Waylon and myself were doing a concert, and I had already been on and done my part of the show, and I was out. And in them days, I used to drink, and I was drinking whiskey and riding my motorcycle around, and Waylon came on stage, and I got excited, and I jumped up on stage with him, and Willie came out, and we was all three standing there singing, and a photographer took a picture of us, and you could see the back of my jacket where it said Outlaws, and the headlines on the paper says the Outlaws came to town. And then the next thing I knew, everything I picked up, it said the Outlaws were here, and the Outlaws this and that and the other thing.
You're part of it. Why don't you go over and grab the guitar and sing Waylon and Me, and we'll listen to it and enjoy it.
I'd love to.
Yeah, dandy. You know, everybody thinks that David Allan Coe is an outlaw. They think he's mean. But I know for a fact, David Allan Coe is just a pussycat. And here he is singing a song he wrote called Willie, Waylon and Me.
I heard the burritos out in California could fly higher than the birds. Roger McGuinn had a 12-string guitar. It was like nothing I'd ever heard. And the Eagles flew in from the West Coast. Like the birds, they were trying to be free. In Texas, the talk turned to outlaws. Like Willie and Waylon and Me. Yeah. They say Texas music's in the making. We've been making music that is free. Doing one-night stands, playing with our band. Willie, Waylon and Me. They say the Beatles were just the beginning of everything music could be. Just like the Stones, I was rolling along like a ship lost out on the sea. And Joplin, she died for the future. And Dylan, he wrote poetry. But in Texas, they still talk about outlaws like Willie and Waylon and Me. My name is David Allan Coe, and I'm from Dallas, Texas. They say Texas music's in the making. We've been making music that is free. Doing one-night stands, playing with our band. Willie, Waylon and Me, little piano. I heard the burritos out in California could fly higher than the birds. Roger McGuinn had a 12-string guitar. It was like nothing I'd ever heard. And the Eagles flew in from the West Coast. Like the birds, they were trying to be free. In Texas, the talk turned to outlaw. Like Willie and Waylon and Me.
When did you start writing?
I was about 13.
Were they good songs or hate songs, bitter songs, love songs?
No, most of them was about, breaking out of prison and getting free and all that
Freedom
kind of-
songs.
Yeah, freedom.
Where'd you get the idea and come up with take this job and Chevy?
Well, I was living out at Old Hickory Lake on my boat, and my boat was between Billy Sherrill's and Bill Anderson's boat, and I was living there. And we went to a movie one night and was coming home. I was going to stop by Johnny Cash's house, and I heard these sirens blowing. You know how you always say, boy, I sure hope that ain't my house, burning down. And we followed these sirens over there, and the boatyard was on fire. And I ran down there and started cutting these boats loose and pushing them out in the water. My girlfriend ran to the house, woke these people up and got them to call the fire department because the fire truck had turned the wrong way, and they had missed the fire completely. So the next day, the Nashville newspaper had wrote me up as being a hero, you know, for doing this. And we were sitting around about a week later with Buddy Killen and a bunch of them guys on Billy Sherrill's houseboat talking about this fire and everything. And somebody said, how'd you like to be a fireman, David Allan? And I said, man, they can take that job and shove it. And Billy says, you ought to write that down. So I went back over on my boat and wrote the song and went over and played it for him. He said, man, that's great. He says, I'm cutting George Jones in the morning. He said, if you want me to, I'll do it on George. And I said, yeah, that sounds good to me. Well, then he called me back the next day and said Jones didn't show up, but he had a Johnny Paycheck and wanted to know if Paycheck wanted to know if he could sing it. And I said, yeah. And that's how all that happened.
How did you get tagged as a mysterious rhinestone cowboy? I always want to know that.
Well, when I first came to town, and you remember when I first come to town, and I had that old hearse that I was living in the back of. I had your picture and just all different kinds of pictures all around the hearse, and in the back window had Tillis's picture in the back window. And I was sitting down at I used to park in front of the Grand Ole Opry, so that everybody had to see my name painted on the side of the car when they came by.
I remember that parked everywhere.
That's right. And this guy walked up to me one day and he said, son, my name is Amel Tillis, and I don't mind you having my picture in here, but I put it up front with you. and that's how I met Tillis. And I went over to his office, and he gave me a rhinestone suit. So I started wearing it. And you remember in the old days how you used to go out the back door of Tootsie's and go over to the Opry. I'd go in there, and I met the guard on the back door, and he'd let me stand in there, you know. And I'd stand in there and run in place till I got real hot with this rhinestone suit on, and then I'd turn around and walk back out about 15 minutes later like I'd just come off the Opry, wiping my head off and signing autographs, and I'd sign the mysterious rhinestone cowboy on there and get in my car and drive off, you know.
Well, you walk in Tootsie sweating like you just come off
like I just came off the Opry.
Well, you've got a song that's a big hit now, and it's about Hank. It's called The Ride.
Yeah, it was written by Gary Gentry.
Well, we just happen to have Gary Gentry in the studio right now with the band, so let's go out there to him, folks. Here is Gary Gentry and The Ride.
Well, I was coming down Montgomery. I had my guitar on my back. And a stranger stopped beside me in a 49 Cadillac. He was dressed like 1950, half drunk and hollow-eyed. Take a long walk to Nashville. Would you like to ride, boy? So when I sat down in the front seat, turned on the radio, them sad songs coming out of them speakers was solid country gold. Then I noticed the stranger was ghost white pale when he asked me for a light. I knew there was something strange about this ride. But he said, sister, can you make folks cry when you play and sing? Have you paid your dues? Can you moan the blues? Can you bend them guitar strings? Or can you make folks feel what you feel inside? Oh, but if you take Starbound, let me warn you. Tell us what really happened, David Allan. Then he cried just south of Nashville. Turned that car around. He said, this is where you get off, son. I'm going back to Alabama. I stepped out of the Cadillac, and I said, Mr. Many thanks. He said, you don't have to call me Mr. The whole world called me Hank. He said, Drifter, can you make folks cry when you play and sing? Have you paid your dues? Can you moan the blues? Can you bend them guitar strings? Boy, can you make folks feel what you feel inside? If you're big starbound, let me warn you, it's a long, hard ride. He said, Drifter, can you make folks cry when you play and sing? Have you paid your dues? Can you moan the blues? Can you bend them guitar strings? Or can you make folks feel what you feel inside? If you're big starbound, let me warn you, it's a long, hard ride. let me warn you, it's a long, hard ride.
Then what did he tell you, David Allan?
You know, things aren't like they was in the 50s when I was there. You got a lot of competition now, son. You got Bobby Bare and Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson and Guy Clark, Billy Joe Schaefer and John Prine and Hank Williams Jr.
And you got David Allan Ghost.
Yeah, and Gary Gentry.
Thank you, David.
Stick around now. When we come back, we'll have more from Steve Young, Gary Gentry, and David Allan.
Well, you know, really, I just did this European thing with David.
Right.
And the reason I accepted that, I'm going to be real honest with you, the reason I accepted that is because I'd been around David one time before. I don't know, it was about 1975 or 6 or sometime. And that's when I went through my surprise about David Allan Coe, because I was around him, went by his house and all out there that time in Texas, and I found him to be very down to earth and even, you know, just laid back and just talk one-on-one and no problems. And just, so I remembered that. And so when they asked me to go to Europe with him, I said, okay, I'll go. And the thing that surprised me this time about working with him in Europe was how creative he was and how original he was, and the way he put together a show. And, you know, I'm super critical, you know, and he got into some things that I really like, which surprised me because I thought it was more of just a rowdy type gear, you know what I mean? But it was some more creative things going on that I didn't realize. Except by working with him, I could see that.
Well, don't you know anything bad about it?
Oh, yeah. Well,
go ahead and tell it.
He threw a few fits over there, you know. But I could see and emphasize, because as far as I know, it was the first time he'd been to England or any other countries. And when I first went over there, it really blew my mind. There was a real culture shock, and I could see that he was going through that there. And sometimes, you know, he'd have a few temper tantrums. You know?
Well, that's understandable, you know. David Allan Coe. Well, of course, I froze to death.
Man.
One time in England, I was freezing to death, and they brought me up a heater. It wasn't really a heater. You know what it was? It was a picture of planes with a little red light.
Yeah, right.
But, Gary, what's your impression of David Allan Coe?
Well, Bobby, I'll be honest with you. The first time I ever met David Allan was a big old club down in Georgia. I pulled in the parking lot, and there's about 4 cars and 500 motorcycles, and I was afraid to go in. But when I got in there, I figured, well, the guy that wrote "Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone" couldn't be all that bad.
Couldn't be all bad.
Went in and saw the man's dynamite show. Went backstage and got to meet David Allan, and he signed my wife's picture and my picture. And we got in the car and agreed, well, this guy's all right.
Well, then we must all agree that all of the things that we've heard about David Allan Coe is mostly PR, publicity, and promotion. And actually, he's really a nice guy. He really is.
He's all right in my
But I
book.
think most of it was when I was younger, Bobby, you know.
Well,
And-
sure.
But a lot of people don't understand, but, I mean, you realize, because you've been in the business a long time, and when I first started singing in Texas, they had chicken wire in front of the stages and catch the beer bottles when they throw them at you, you know? And I was just one of them guys that when someone threw a beer bottle at me, I just went out in the audience and got in a fight with them.
Well, throw it back.
Yeah, or whatever, you know, and up to then, I guess no one had ever done that. They just kind of, you know, said, gee whiz, fellas, you know, and left. And I just went out there and started fighting with them and got in the newspapers, you know.
Well, you know, most of the people, myself included, around Nashville, we know you really well.
Yeah, you've known me for a long
And,
time.
And I know you really as a sensitive person,
Yeah.
very creative person, and that's what it's all about. Maybe if you live a little bit longer, you'll mellow out. I think you already are.
I'm 43 now. I mean, I know I look like I'm 19. But
Well, of course. We got to go away a few seconds, and we'll be right back. Young and Gary Gentry dropping by the studio. I'd also like to thank Rodeo, your harmony singer, for rodeoing by. Why don't we leave with the song that you wrote that was a big hit for Tanya Tucker, and I've been wanting to sing this song for a long time. And I'd like to sing maybe 2 verses of it.
All right. You going to sing Tanya's part?
Well, I'm going to try. Now, she sang Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone? Real sexy, but I'm going to try. Let's see. Give me a
Let's see what happens.
Would you lay with me in a field of stone? If my needs were strong, would you lay with me? Should my lips grow dry, would you wet them, dear? In the midnight hour, should my lips grow dry, would you go away to another land, walk 1,000 miles through the burning sand, wipe the blood away from my dying hand? If I give myself to you, would you bathe me in the stream of light when the moon is full? Will you bathe me? Will you love me now when I'm down and out in my time of trial? Would you stand by me? Would you go away to another land, walk 1,000 miles through the burning sand, wipe the blood away from my dying hand? If I give myself to you, do it now. Would you lay with me in a field of stone? If my needs were strong, would you